Grandad's farm. The bus rattled along the winding county roads, past green fields and tumble-down stone walls. Jazz was visiting her granddad's farm. The long summer holiday meant that she had lots of free time and she was always happy to help. The farm was so much more exciting than her boring bedroom. Jazz rang the bus bell when she could see the familiar shape of Grandad's barn. She thanked the bus driver and set off down the dirt track. Already, she could hear the rumbling sound of the old red tractor. Grandad always started to work on the farm early. Jazz! Shouted Grandad over the roar of the engine. I'm so glad you're here. Grandma is in town this morning, so I need your help. Jazz smiled up at her granddad, her boots sinking into the soft ground, ready for sowing seeds. I'll get straight to work. As usual, Grandad had pinned a list of jobs to the barn door for Jazz. She loved some of the jobs, like collecting the eggs from the chicken coop, but wasn't so keen on mucking out the smelly pigs. But all of the jobs had to be done, and Grandad couldn't possibly do it all by himself. After fetching a basket from the kitchen, Jazz made her way to the chicken coop. The chickens pecked at the corn on the dusty ground and clucked happily to each other. Jazz calmly lifted the wooden roof of the coop and began to gently collect the warm, speckled eggs from the hay. Grandad sold the eggs at his farm shop along with the milk, vegetables, and meat from the animals. Job done, Jazz said as she peered at the dozen eggs in her basket. The next job was not the highlight of Jazz's day. She needed to clean out the pig's shelter. Luckily, Grandad raised free-range animals, which meant they had lots of outside space to roam around in. The pigs were out in the field, so Jazz could clean up their poo in peace. Jazz piled the dung into an empty wheelbarrow. She knew her granddad would use it as a natural fertilizer to help the vegetables and crops grow. Job done, puffed Jazz, wiping the sweat from her brow. Next on the list was feeding the cows in the field. Grandad had a herd of Frisian cows with black and white splotches all over their hides. The cows made the tastiest milk for Grandad to sell. Mooing loudly, they trotted towards Jazz as she shook a bucket of sugar beets, the cow's favorite treat. Job done, smiled Jazz, swinging the empty bucket as the cows munched and crunched noisily. Jazz's tummy grumbled loudly. One more job to do before lunch. Jazz opened the door of the huge glass greenhouse. Her nose was instantly filled with a delicious earthy smell. Bright red and yellow tomatoes hung from leafy plants like Christmas decorations. It was so warm in the greenhouse. The tomatoes grew best in the warmth. Jazz flicked a switch and the special sprinklers in the ceiling whirred into action, watering the tomatoes for her. Grandad had lots of special equipments on the farm to speed up jobs, like his cultivator, which the tractor pulled through the ground to make neat rows for planting crops and vegetables. Job done, grinned Jazz as she headed towards the kitchen. Ah, the last job on the list, said Jazz. She could see through the window that Granddad had almost finished cultivating the field, soon to be planted with beetroots. Granddad would be ready for some lunch after all that hard work. Carefully, Jas prepared a delicious meal of egg and tomato sandwich and a glass each of ice-cold milk. Jas smiled thinking about where each item had come from. The chickens had laid the tasty eggs, the pigs had made the fertilizer for the tomatoes from the greenhouse, and the cows had made the fresh milk. "Job done!" exclaimed Jas, balancing a tray as she headed towards the field. Jas and Grandad sat in the old red tractor, munching on their sandwiches and gulping down the refreshing milk. They turned their heads at the sound of the bus bell ringing. Grandma was back from her weekly trip to town, laden with shopping bags. The farm provided them with lots of different foods, but not everything they needed, like toiletries and cleaning products for the house. "You've worked hard this morning, Jas. Thank you so much for your help," Grandad said, ruffling Jas's hair. "Would you like to ride in the tractor with me for the rest of the day?" "Yes, please," beamed Jas excitedly. She loved helping on the farm, but she loved spending time with Grandad even more. The end.